My mom chose my toxic stepsister over me. Then I got engaged, and her husband's business tanked. She blames me. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm sharing a wild story about family, betrayal, and how karma can sometimes come full circle. Grab a snack, because this is a long one. I'm 26F, and have been happily engaged to my fiancé, Jeff 26M, for about 2 months. We met 4 years ago on a dating app, and have been inseparable ever since. Jeff truly is my soulmate. He's the only person who has never let me down. My life hasn't been easy, to say the least. My parents divorced when I was 2, and my father vanished without a trace. He paid child support, but that was the extent of his involvement. My mother, 48F, wasn't exactly a stellar parent either. Growing up, she was more interested in her own life than in raising me. I was mostly raised by nannies and babysitters. She was young, social, and a freelance artist who made good money, but she didn't seem to care much about being a mom. Honestly, I suspect if it weren't for the child support, she would have kicked me out ages ago. She was never truly devoted. To me, it seemed to be waiting for me to be old enough to leave her alone. The arrival of Jeswin. I was around 13. My mom started dating my stepfather, Matt 50M. Matt had a daughter, Jess, who was around my age. My mom first brought them home to introduce us. She stressed how important it was for me to be on my best behavior. This was unusual. My mom had brought boyfriends home countless times before, but she'd never cared about my conduct. Usually she'd just tell me guests were coming, and I'd take that as my cue to retreat to my room. This time, however, I sensed she was serious about Matt. My first meeting with Matt and Jess was pleasant enough. They were both relatively kind. I had no idea what was coming next. Soon, Matt started visiting more frequently, almost as if he'd moved in. I didn't mind. It didn't affect me, so I saw no reason to worry. For a long time, things remained that way. They were practically living together, and Jess would visit periodically, splitting her time with her mother. Initially, people either treated me politely or ignored me, which was fine by me. I wasn't particularly close to my mother, so caring about her extended family was difficult. All I wanted was my peace and quiet, which I enjoyed for a while. My room, my sanctuary, then. They decided to make their arrangement permanent and move in together. This is where things took a turn. My mother announced that since they were moving in, I'd have to share my room with Jess. I flat out refused. That room had been mine my entire life. It was my sanctuary, the one place I had privacy. About to give up my independence for someone I barely knew, our argument was heated. My mom threatened to kick me out. At 14, I knew enough about the law to understand she couldn't legally evict me until I was an adult. So, I called her bluff. She was frustrated but had no choice but to let me keep my room. Instead, she decided to convert the basement into Jess's room. It wasn't bad. My mom even put an effort to make it livable. I still don't understand what the big deal was, but for some reason, that's when Jess started to despise me. Perhaps it was because on the day she moved in, my mother gave a house tour and publicly announced that Jess was in the basement because I refused to share my room. I still don't understand why she did that. Maybe she wanted me to feel guilty, but it just made me feel awkward and embarrassed for Jess. Or maybe she just loved drama and wanted to stir up trouble between us. Whatever the reason, Jess, it turned out, wasn't the type to let things go. Vicious vendetta. My mother was right. Jess never forgot it. From that day on, she treated me like an enemy. She'd still spend half her time with her mother, but the days she was with us were unbearable. She had a personal vendetta against me. She'd constantly be cruel, making horrible remarks right to my face. For example, she once told me my father probably left because of me, then laughed as if it were the funniest thing. She mocked my appearance because I was a bit heavier then. At school, Jess ran with a popular mean girl clique, and she'd seize every opportunity to bully me with her friends. Before, they'd simply ignored me, which I preferred. We were never friends, but that was infinitely better than being her enemy. The saddest part was, I'd done nothing to her. She was simply offended that I didn't want to share my room. It was a ridiculous reason to hate me so much and try to ruin my life. My room was my safe space, and with a mother like mine, I don't think anyone can blame me for wanting my own area. Besides, if any of them had bothered to get to know me, I might have considered sharing. But she was a stranger. I wasn't comfortable sacrificing my independence for her. I never complained to my mother or Matt because they knew what was happening and simply didn't care. They would turn a blind eye. No matter how much I was bullied, I had to endure it. I'd fight back occasionally, but I quickly learned it only escalated things. Our parents would intervene, and I'd be grounded because they seemed to detest me. Jess would cry on cue to get out of trouble, while I, unable to manipulate like her, would be punished and told to act like a sister. It was a miserable environment, and I hated my life, kicked out and finding my feet so. When I was finally kicked out around my 18th birthday, I was more relieved than anything. I'd put up with their craziness for years, and it had only gotten worse. Jess remained a nightmare, and our parents always backed her without question. In 4 years, she'd turned our entire high school against me. I had only a few friends. Who would even speak to me? Everyone else hated me because Jess did. This took a toll on my mental health. I gained weight from binge eating. My skin was breaking out, and my hair was a mess. I was also struggling to keep up with my grades. Felt like I had nothing going for me. I was at an all-time low. At home, things were no better. My mother grew increasingly irritable, constantly comparing me to Jess. Before Matt, my mom's indifference was bad, but after their marriage, it escalated. She went from not caring to actively making me feel horrible. It felt like I was living. With mean girls at home, it was obvious Jess was the daughter my mother wished she'd had, and she was stuck with me. I knew they both wanted me gone, and honestly, so did I. My mother and Jess despised me. Matt just didn't care. I had no other relatives to turn to. My grandparents didn't speak to us, and I knew nothing about my father's side of the family. I truly had nowhere to go, and felt awkward asking friends for help. So, I endured, needing a roof over my head and food until I turned 18. Then, a few weeks before my birthday, an incident occurred, and I was kicked out that same day. It was a weekend, but I remember it like it was yesterday, one of the most stressful days of my life. Jess and I had both recently graduated. She'd started hanging out with an older crowd. She was dating her friend's older college-aged brother. And I knew exactly what they were up to, but I didn't think it was worth bringing up with my parents. With my luck, it would only backfire on me. So, I never mentioned her drinking or suspected pot smoking. I wasn't interested in any of that myself. I was already struggling enough with my weight and academics. That day, I think I left my room unlocked before showering. The next thing I knew, my mother was banging on the bathroom door, yelling for me to come out. When I did, my mother, Matt, and Jess were waiting in my room, all with grim expressions. My mother pulled empty beer bottles from under my bed and, even worse, a large plastic baggie containing a significant amount of weed. My parents had no idea it didn't belong to me or Jess. I believe Jess planted it there when I was showering and alerted my mother. They started screaming, calling me a terrible person. She didn't just yell about the drugs. She vented about how I was a disgrace, a waste of space, and would never amount to anything, just living off them. I tried explaining multiple times that it wasn't mine, but she didn't believe me. When I suggested Jess might have planted it, she completely lost it, yelling about how I was always jealous of Jess and trying to shift blame. I was crying uncontrollably, but she didn't care, continuing her tirade. After a while, she stopped, yelling, and told me I needed to leave. I was confused, asking where I was supposed to go. She said she didn't care, she just wanted me out. When I refused, she threatened to call the cops, adding that since I was almost 18, they'd take the drug allegations seriously. She declared she wouldn't have an addict living with her, consuming her money and resources. She was tired of pretending to be a happy family with someone who deserved nothing. I pleaded with her not to force me out. Despite wanting to leave, I had nowhere to go and no money. But my mother was unmoved. She told me if I wasn't gone that day, she'd call the police herself. I was shocked by her cruelty, and even more so that Matt and Jess said nothing. They just went about their day as if nothing was happening. After a lot of crying and begging, I finally started packing. I'd rather be homeless than arrested for drug possession. By evening, I was packed. No one said goodbye as I left. I never looked back. A new beginning. I sat in a park for a few hours, but it got cold, so I decided to try my best friend Amy's apartment, hoping they'd let me stay. Amy already knew how my parents were, so I didn't need to explain much. When I told her what happened, she was horrified. She said her parents could help if I let them. I'd always discouraged her from telling anyone about my parents' treatment, fearing no one would believe me. That day, she insisted I tell her parents. They were as appalled as Amy. They called my mother, but it was useless. She was incredibly unpleasant. Realizing talking to her wouldn't help. They did something I'm eternally grateful for. They offered me a place to stay for as long as I needed and promised to help me. They were wealthy, so money wasn't an issue, and Amy adored me, so she was happy to share her room. I lived with them for the next few years, attending community college, the only place I could get into with my poor high school grades. I started working and saving for my own place, but Amy's parents made sure I never felt pressured to leave and made me as comfortable as possible. About 3 years ago, I finally saved enough to move out. I was incredibly proud and so grateful. To Amy and her parents, I truly couldn't have done it without them. Even on moving day, they helped me settle into my new home and told me I was always welcome back. That was the turning point in my life. By then, I'd lost a lot of weight, my health had improved significantly, and I felt and looked better. I was making enough money to support myself and had put in the effort to improve myself. So, I decided to start dating. I dated a few guys before Jeff, but nothing serious ever came of it. After meeting Jeff, I understood why. We were meant to be. The others were just for fun. When we first started dating, I had no idea he was wealthy and heir to his father's company. I just liked him because he was funny and cute, and he seemed to like me too. After a few months, he told me about his family. They owned a restaurant chain he'd inherit when his father retired. Many might think learning about his wealth changed things, but he was still the same person to me. It made no difference. I loved him just as much. We moved in together after about a year, and he'd introduced me to his family months before. Everyone in his family liked me, and we got along great. Everything was perfect. So when he recently asked me to marry him, I knew the answer immediately. We've been engaged for 2 months, and things are wonderful. Jess blames me for her husband's business loss then, about 2 weeks ago. I got an email from Jess. We hadn't spoken in almost 8 years, and I hadn't heard from my family since I was kicked out. I had no idea why she would contact me now, especially to make amends. I thought enough time had passed, and neither of us cared enough to try to fix things. So I was baffled when I received an email from her apologizing for everything and admitting she'd been a complete nightmare. She confessed to planting the stuff in my room to get me thrown out because she disliked me for no reason. I couldn't understand why she was revealing all this after so many years, and I sensed something was off. The timing was also suspicious. I had recently gotten engaged, and I knew she must have heard about it. I'd posted about it on social media, and we went to the same high school, so someone must have told her. Everything felt odd, so I decided to do some digging. I discovered that Jess's husband owned the company that supplied plastic containers and other takeout items to Jeff's restaurants. It was easy to figure out. I created a fake profile and found her husband's profile, where he disclosed everything about his work in his bio. I already knew a lot about Jeff's business because we planned to run it together after his father retires. So I was already learning the ropes. When I realized who Jeff was dealing with, I immediately told him. Over the past few years, I've tried my best not to think about my past and just move on. I don't follow anyone from my family online, and I told my friends not to tell me anything about them. I had no idea Jess was married, let alone for a few years. But when I found out her husband was our supplier, Jeff and I decided to reevaluate our arrangement. It was already costing us a lot of money, and I certainly didn't want to do business with her again. Jeff also mentioned that the quality of products from her husband had significantly declined. They were already considering dropping him for another supplier who offered better products at lower prices. So last week, a few days after I received Jess's email, Jeff met with her husband and canceled their contract. For some reason, Jess believes I did this purely for revenge, and she's been accusing me of it in emails and social media posts. We haven't spoken in about a decade, but she still thinks I'm holding a grudge, which I admit I might be. But that's not why her husband lost our contract a few days ago. She posted that many of her clients had already dropped them, and this was the final blow. She maintains I did it out of spite and that it was unprofessional. She even tagged our Facebook page, and things have gotten pretty ugly. I feel bad for her because, according to her message, she and her husband are losing business left and right. Okay, I'll admit some of this was personal, but much of it was also business. I doubt Jeff and his father would have dropped her husband based solely on my word. Still, I do feel somewhat bad for her. I've been wondering if I should have made my fiancé stop working with my estranged stepsister's husband. Update 1. Taking legal action. Okay, so Jeff spoke with his father's lawyers and they believe we did the right thing. We're now pursuing legal action against them, demanding they remove that message. We're also filing defamation charges. The guy charged us an exorbitant amount and delivered subpar products. If we could get a better offer elsewhere, of course we'd go there. It's just a coincidence that Jess is married to the company owner. Instead of improving their business operations, she chose to trash us on social media. It's ridiculous that I allowed myself to feel bad for her after everything she put me through. But your comments really opened my eyes. Many of you have been incredibly supportive, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your comments. Update 2. My mother intervenes again. So Jeff and his father filed a slander claim against Jess and her husband a few days ago. We'll meet with a court-appointed mediator in about a week. In the meantime, my mother has taken it upon herself to protect her poor little stepdaughter yet again. It's so silly, I feel like I'm back in high school. Thankfully, I'm not, so I can simply disregard what they say. Unlike then, I don't need to be in my mother's good graces for a roof over my head. So, she can complain all she wants, but nothing will change. She's been trying to contact me for the past few days, ever since Jess was served, but I've simply blocked her and moved on with my life. I don't need that kind of negativity around me. I'm engaged. I'm going to marry the man of my dreams. I don't need her or her crazy stepdaughter back in my life. Update 3. Victory and moving forward. Hey everyone, quick update. First off, we won the defamation lawsuit. It wasn't even that difficult because my father-in-law's lawyers are absolute sharks. They absolutely decimated Jess and her husband. So maybe now they'll focus more on their business and meeting client expectations. They had to pay for what they said. And we were able to reach an agreement, so that's over. We can finally devote all our attention to planning our wedding. It's so thrilling, and I can't wait to marry Jeff. As I said before, he's my soulmate, and I've waited a long time to find someone like him. Now that I have him, I'll never let go. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and hit that notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.